Sir, you can start. Sir, you can start the class. Sir, you can on the mic.
Is it here now? Tell me.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
Right. So now today I'm going to explain about the principal stress. So yesterday I explained about the principal stresses by using the analytical method and by using the graphical method, that is also named as Mohr circle method. But today I'm going to explain about principal stresses. But this one is very simple. I already told you yesterday also. So in case of principal stresses, we are using the notations like this. This is nothing but sigma x. Sigma x is nothing but stress along the x-axis, and sigma y is nothing but stress along y-axis, and tau xy is nothing but shear stress. Tau xy is nothing but shear stress value in two-dimensional state of stress, which is having two normal stresses, one shear stress. Now here, in case of principal stresses, so what are the general form here? That is general condition here. That is what is the formula for normal stress? We know that sigma x plus sigma y by 2 plus sigma x plus sigma y by 2 into cos 2 theta plus tau xy into sin 2 theta. Right? So that is the formula for normal stress, and this is the formula for shear stress, that is sigma x minus sigma y by 2 into sin 2 theta minus tau xy into how much cos 2 theta. As same as we can write the what is the value of principal plane, principal stress, I'll give it to you. But here, in case of principal stresses, in case of principal stresses, principal strains, I'm going to use, in place of sigma x, I'm going to use epsilon x and epsilon y and phi xy. What is epsilon x? Strain along x direction. What is epsilon y? Strain along y direction. What is phi xy? That is nothing but shear strain. So just I'm going to replace the sigma x by epsilon x, sigma y by epsilon y, and tau xy replaced by phi xy. But in case of shear, when the component is shear like this, so this is the point. If you take it, when it is shear like this, it is equal to how much? Phi. But here two strains are there. One is tangential strain and one is nothing but shear strain. That is, one is normal strain and one is shear strain. But here normal strain always equal to how much? Half of the shear strain. So that strain is always uh, the shear strain nothing but so gamma xy by 2. So this is named as tangential strain must be is equal to half of the shear strain. So we are going to substitute in place of phi xy, we are going to substitute gamma xy by 2. So there must be a derivation in our textbook. We can follow it. We can remember that condition. So I'm going to write the same formula for this case. That is nothing but epsilon n, that is normal strain formula, is equal to, I can write here epsilon x plus epsilon y divided by 2 plus epsilon x minus epsilon y divided by 2 into cos 2 theta plus phi xy into sin 2 theta. But in place of phi xy, we are going to substitute gamma xy by 2. As same as we are writing here, shear strain phi is equal, don't write phi xy, phi is equal to, that is epsilon x minus epsilon y divided by 2 into sine 2 theta minus phi xy into cos 2 theta. What you observed here, here just I'm going to replace sigma x by epsilon x, sigma y by epsilon y, and tau xy is replaced by phi xy, and phi xy must be is equal to gamma xy by 2. So what are the values of principal strain and principal stress? I'll give it to you. So these are the formula of normal stress and shear, normal strain and shear strain. So when the component is subject to biaxial shear. So I can use the same formula for all cases. If it is uniaxial, epsilon y is 0 and phi xy is 0. It is biaxial, phi xy is 0. If it is uniaxial shear, only epsilon y is 0, the phi xy is not equal to 0. And in case of biaxial shear, all are present. So in the same way also, we can calculate all the strain values here. So I'm writing clearly here, listen carefully. What are the basic formulas for principal strains? So when a component is subject to any case, for example, when a component is subject to uniaxial state of stress, or when a component is subject to biaxial state of stress. So when a component is subject to pure shear, when the component is subject to uniaxial shear, the component is subject to uniaxial shear. This is the component which is subject to biaxial shear. So here biaxial and shear. Whatever the case, we have to take it. So general case is nothing but biaxial and shear. So in the general case, what are the formulas we have? That is first formula. I'm going to write it. So here normal strain, as same as in principal stresses. So normal strain is equal to epsilon x plus epsilon y divided by 2 plus epsilon x minus epsilon y divided by 2 into cos 2 theta plus phi xy into sine 2 theta. But phi xy must be is equal to how much? I am writing here phi xy must be is equal to gamma xy by 2. This is nothing but tangential strain is equal to half of the shear strain. So here I'm writing next point, the next formula, that is shear strain is equal to, that is epsilon x minus epsilon y divided by 2 into sine 2 theta minus phi xy into cos 2 theta. And what is the angle of principal plane? We know that the angle of principal plane is nothing but tan 2 theta p is equal to, generally we are writing tau xy divided by sigma x minus sigma y by 2. But here tau xy is nothing but phi xy divided by sigma x epsilon x minus epsilon y divided by 2. That is the formula for principal plane. And next one is the principal stresses, that is epsilon 1 and epsilon 2 is equal to, as same as all are same, formulas are same, only in case of stresses we are going to replace it by strains, that is epsilon, say sigma x is replaced by epsilon x, sigma y is replaced by epsilon y, and phi xy is replaced, tau xy is replaced by phi xy. So these are the principal stresses. We can write here epsilon x plus epsilon y divided by 2 plus or minus square root of epsilon x minus epsilon y divided by 2 whole square plus 5xy whole square. That are the formulas for principal strains here. As same as shear plane. Shear plane formula is nothing but so cot 2 theta s is equal to, we can write here minus 5xy divided by epsilon x minus epsilon y divided by 2. This is the formula for shear plane. What are the maximum shear stress? That is nothing but phi maximum shear strain. Maximum shear strain is equal to, what are the formula? So we can write this one. So plus or minus square root of sigma x minus sigma y by 2 whole square plus 5xy whole square. So these are the formulas we can use to calculate all the values. What is the principal plane? What is the principal stress? What is the shear plane? What is the maximum shear strain here? Here is principal strains here. Here is principal plane here. So if you take the principal stresses and principal strains, formulas are same, but notations are different. So here sigma x is replaced by epsilon x, sigma y by replaced by epsilon y, and tau xy is replaced by phi xy. So but phi xy must be is equal to gamma xy by 2. Then all the formulas are same. So we can apply for uniaxial. Uniaxial means which values are 0? Epsilon y, phi xy is 0. In case of biaxial, phi xy is only 0. In case of pure shear, so epsilon x, epsilon y must be 0. We are having the other value. And next one is nothing but, so this is uniaxial and shear. We are having epsilon x and phi xy only. There is no epsilon y. In case of biaxial shear, these are the formula. So this is the basic. Depending on this one, we can write the formulas for uniaxial, biaxial, shear, and uniaxial and shear, depending on the condition. So these are the formulas for principal strains. So principal strains are very simple. They will give it directly what is the principal strain on x-axis and y-axis. Then we can take epsilon x and epsilon y and substitute in the formula. Then we will get the required answers. So at the same time, so I want to find the what is the value of relation between the principal stresses and principal strains. So this is a very important point. So you have to remember in GATE point of view. So most of the questions are given on principal stresses. One or two questions are given on principal strains. Directly question are given in GATE examination. So take care about the formula. There is no difficulty. Directly substitute. Stresses are replaced by strains is only the difference. So formulas are all are same, but only difference you have to observe phi xy must be is equal to gamma xy by 2. Okay, right. So here I'm going to write it. A relation between principal stresses and principal strain. I'm writing here a relation between principal stresses and strains. Principal stresses and strains. So first of all, I'm going to write it. So sigma 1 and sigma 2 are the two principal stress. One is maximum or other one is minimum. We know that. So if you take two principal stresses, one is maximum, one is minimum. I know that how to calculate maximum, how to calculate minimum. Same as epsilon 1 and epsilon 2 are two principal strains. Epsilon 1 and epsilon 2 are two principal strains. Now you get my point? Right. Now here I am going to write the relation between principal stresses in one dimensional, in two dimensional, and three dimensional also. But here we are going to deal up to one two dimension only here. In three dimension also we can write it. So listen carefully here. So in one dimensional state of stress, that is uniaxial state of stress, according to Hooke's law, the principal stress is directly proportional to principal strain. Principal stress is directly proportional to principal strain. If you want to remove the proportionality constant, we can put a constant that is nothing but Young modulus. Why? Because both are normal. So we can write E into how much? Epsilon 1. So from this one, I can write the relation between the principal stress and the principal strain in uniaxial state of stress. Right? So in a biaxial state of stress. So here I'm writing in a two-dimensional state of stress. So in two-dimensional state of stress, I have already told you, if you want to write the relation between stress and strain, Poisson ratio is required. Poisson ratio is required. So listen carefully here. I told you already, when the component is subject to biaxial state of stress, for example, this one is sigma 1, and this one is nothing but sigma 2. Now, so how many strains will develop here? Two types of strains will develop. That is, first one is nothing but linear strain, and second one is nothing but lateral strain. So if you apply the force along x direction, so along x there must be a linear strain, along y there must be a lateral strain. But if you apply, but we are applying the force only along x direction, but we are getting the two types of strain along x and along y. One is linear, one is lateral. So what is the formula for that thing now? I am writing here total strain along x direction. That means epsilon 1. Along x, I am taking epsilon 1. So here I am writing epsilon 1. Here I am writing epsilon 2 along x and y. So I am writing here sigma 1 by E, that is a linear strain along x minus a lateral strain along y. So we know that relation Poisson ratio is equal to lateral strain by linear strain, but both are opposite to each other. That's why I'm going to put negative value. I already told you. And here, another relation here, epsilon 2 is equal to sigma 2 by E is nothing but linear minus Poisson ratio into sigma 1 by E is nothing but lateral strain. You got my point? So this is the relation between stress and strain in two-dimensional state of stress according to Hooke's law. But I want to convert sigma 1 in terms of epsilon, and epsilon I want to convert into sigmas. That is, stresses are converted into strains, or strains are converted into stress by using these two relations in two-dimensional state of stress. Right? So here, first of all, which value we are going to calculate, stress or strain? When the component is subject to any type of force, whether it is tensile or compressive or bending or any type of force, which value we are going to find first now, stress or strain? So first of all, we are going to find the strain value. After that, we are going to find the stress value. Or you got my point? So first of all, we are going to find the strain value. So that I'm going to write the all the principal stresses in terms of strain in terms of strain. Now see this one, how to write it. So by using this relation, I am going to write it sigma 1 minus Poisson ratio into sigma 2 is equal to E into epsilon 1. I am going to take the LCM here multiplied by E here, we are getting that value. Now here I want to write sigma 1 here. Otherwise we can take like this also from this equation also. So sigma 2 minus Poisson ratio into sigma 1 is equal to E into epsilon 2. So from this one, I am writing here epsilon 2 is equal to E into sigma 2 is equal to E into epsilon 2 plus Poisson ratio into sigma 1. Okay. Now I am going to substitute this equation 1 in this one. Now tell me now. See here I am writing sigma 1 minus Poisson ratio into what is sigma 2? That is E into epsilon 2 plus Poisson ratio into sigma 1 is equal to E into epsilon 1. E into epsilon 1. Listen carefully, it is very simple thing. Just I am explaining how to get the relation between the how to express the stresses in terms of strain here. So here I'm expanding here sigma 1 minus E into Poisson ratio into epsilon 2 minus Poisson ratio square into sigma 1 is equal to E into epsilon 1. I'm going to take the all the epsilons to this side. Then I'm getting the relation sigma 1 minus Poisson ratio square into sigma 1. So E into epsilon 1 plus E into Poisson ratio into epsilon 2. Then by using that relation, I'm going to write. So here sigma 1 is common. So sigma 1 is common. Then we are getting 1 minus Poisson ratio is equal to Listen carefully. E is equal to, so I'm writing here, E is common. E is common. That is epsilon 1 into Poisson ratio into epsilon 2. And what is sigma 1 value? That is E into epsilon 1 plus Poisson ratio into epsilon 2 divided by 1 minus Poisson ratio. So this is the formula for principal stress, all in terms of epsilon 1 and epsilon 2 along with Poisson and Young modulus. As same as I'm going to write this sigma 2 value. Sigma 2 is equal to E into epsilon 2 plus, here is epsilon 1, here is epsilon 2 into plus epsilon 1 divided by 1 minus Poisson ratio whole square. So these are the two values, that is principal stresses. Uh, we are expressing in terms of principal strains. So what I am telling you, first of all, we are going to find epsilon 1 and epsilon 2 by using some devices. What are the devices I told you yesterday? Those devices are named as gauges. Those devices are named as gauges. Those are also named as strain gauges. They are also named as strain gauges. So if you know how to calculate strain by using strain gauges, after that I'm going to substitute the epsilon 1 and epsilon 2 and Young modulus. We know that for different materials we are having Young modulus and we are having different Poisson ratio of different materials. Then we can know the epsilon 1, epsilon 2 by using these strain gauges. Then substitute all the values, we can get the principal stress 1 and principal stress 2. After finding the sigma 1 and sigma 2, we can say easily which one is maximum, which one is minimum, depending on its magnitude. Or get my point or not? Depending on the maximum stress, then we are going to consider the design of the element. That is, design is totally based on maximum stress. Or got my point or not? So these are the two formulas in two-dimensional state of stress. As same as we can write the in terms of sigma 1, sigma 2, sigma 3, in terms of epsilon 1 and epsilon 2 and epsilon 3 in three-dimensional state of stress also. But in case of gate point of view, that is not important, but up to two-dimensional is important. That is the plane stresses. It is two-dimensional. So we have to remember how to write the relation between the principal stresses and the principal strain. So this is the relation between principal stresses and principal strain in two-dimensional state of stress. Now, I want to find epsilon 1 and epsilon 2, that is principal strains. What I am saying you, principal strains are measured by strain gauges. So these gauges, how many gauges are required here? So three gauges are required on three planes. Or you got my point or not? So these three gauges are placed in a particular angle that is named as strain rosette. Or got my point or not? So what I am saying here, so the strain gauges are arranged. I want to find the strain value along XY plane, YZ plane, ZX plane like that. But here that is named as a strain rosette. So I'm writing here, next one. So I'm writing here strain rosette. So strain rosette. So strain rosette is nothing but, so listen carefully. So the strain gauges are arranged. Strain gauges are arranged in a particular direction. In a particular direction is called strain rosette. So now here there are three arrangements of these strain gauges. I will give it to you. First one is nothing but rectangular arrangement, that is a 45 degrees strain rosette. So I'm writing here. There are three types of arrangement of these strain gauges. So here, how many gauge arrangements here? So there are three types of arrangement of gauges here now. That is, first one is nothing but 45 degrees strain rosette. 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 45 degrees strain r And next one is nothing but 60 degrees strain rosette. And next one is 120 degrees strain rosette. Now, in case of a 45 degrees strain rosette, it is also indicate like this. So I can arrange these gauges like this on the component. So this is the x-axis and this is y-axis and this is nothing but oblique plane. There are three planes are there. All of you know it. Or you got my point? So this is the horizontal plane, this is the vertical plane, this is the inclined plane, it is also named as oblique plane. So I'm going to put a gauge here on this horizontal plane. I'm going to put a gauge here on the oblique plane. I'm going to put a gauge on vertical plane. So how many gauges are required here? Three gauges are required. But here theta is equal to how much? 0 degrees. But what is the angle between these two? Theta is equal to 45 degrees. And what is the angle between these two? Theta is equal to 45 degrees. So between these two gauges, angle must be is equal to how much? 45 degrees. So that is named as 45 degrees strain rosette. So I can find the strain value on horizontal plane. I can find the strain value on vertical plane. I can find the strain value on the oblique plane. If you know the strain value on oblique plane, then substitute those values in the stresses, and we can find the principal stresses. So here, this is named as 60 degrees strain rosette. So I can arrange these strains like this in a equilateral triangle. It is also named as equilateral strain rosette or 60 degrees strain rosette. So this angle is also 60 degrees. It is also 60 degrees. It is also 60 degrees. Here I am going to put one strain gauge. Here is I am going to put one strain gauge. Here is I am going to put one strain gauge. This is named as 60 degrees strain rosette. Or you got my point or not? Okay. All right. So here, last one is nothing but, so 120 degrees is nothing but, this one is nothing but 0 degrees. And this one is nothing but 0 degrees strain gauge. And this one is nothing but 120 degrees strain gauge here. This angle is 120. And next one is also is equal to how much? Yes. Can indicate like this up to this one. So this angle is also is equal to how much? 120 degrees. Or you got my point here. So 120, 120 and 120. So then we are getting here 360 total angle. So we can arrange the three gauges in three different ways. So that is named as a strain arrangement. So to find the strain in different directions. So that is named as strain rosette. So rosette is nothing but rosette. Set is nothing but we are going to arrange the gauges in a different manner. That is named as strain rosette. So by using any method, so any strain rosette, that is 45 degree strain rosette or 60 degrees strain rosette or 120 degrees strain rosette, we are going to calculate strain values. I will give it to you how to calculate the strain values. And by using these strain values, we are going to calculate stresses values. Okay. All right. Listen carefully. So what I am saying here, after that, so I'll give the explanation about the remaining things now. So here, so if you want to find the strain, so the strain gauges are arranged in a particular angle so that I want to write this strain at any angle. What is the formula of strain at any angle on the component? So I'm writing here strain at any angle on a component. That is epsilon theta is equal to, I'm writing here, listen carefully, epsilon x plus epsilon y divided by 2 plus epsilon x minus epsilon y divided by 2 into cos 2 theta plus phi x y into how much sin 2 theta. So this is the value of strain at any point on a component at any angle. So we can use this one. So here We are using three types of strain rosette, that is 45 degrees strain rosette and 60 degrees strain rosette and 120 degrees strain rosette. By using any one, for example, I'm going to use 45 degrees strain rosette. Forty-five degrees strain rosette. How to find the values of epsilon x and epsilon y? That is, I want to find this is 45 degrees strain rosette. Rosette. This is nothing but one gauge here, one gauge here, one gauge here. Angle between the two gauges must be is equal to 45 degrees. So this is equal to 45 degrees and this is equal to 45 degrees. Okay, right. But here I want to find this strain along x by using this gauge. So I want to find which one now? Strain at an angle of theta is equal to 0. How much value we get it? That is given by this strain gauge. So this is nothing but strain at theta is equal to 45 degrees. What is the meaning of this one? So I am putting the strain gauge at an angle of 45 degrees with the horizontal. This strain gauge gives strain at an angle of 45 degrees. And here, this is a strain at an angle of how much? 90 degrees. So if you know this strain value, that is along which axis? X-axis. This is along which axis? Y-axis. So if you substitute theta is equal to 0, then we are going to find so strain along x-axis by using strain gauge. So if we substitute theta is equal to 90 in the above equation, we are going to find the what is the value of strain along y direction. If you go into substitute theta is equal to 45, we are going to find a strain along an oblique plane. Or got my point or not? So that now listen carefully. I'm going to substitute those values. What are the values we are going to calculate it here now? Or you got it? First of all, I want to find epsilon x, epsilon y, and phi xy also. Phi xy also. Phi xy is equal to gamma xy by 2. Listen carefully here. So first of all, I'm going to take theta is equal to 0 degrees. So substitute here. That is epsilon theta is equal to 0 degrees. What happened? That is epsilon x plus epsilon y divided by 2 plus here theta is 0, but cos 0 is how much? 1, but sin 0 is equal to 0. Then we are getting only epsilon x minus epsilon y divided by 2. These two are cancelled. Then we can get 2 epsilon x divided by 2. Both are cancelled. We are getting epsilon x. What is the value of strain when theta is equal to 0? That is epsilon x. I got the point. I got that value. Now I want to find when theta is equal to 90 degrees, how much value we get it now? So I'm writing here. So epsilon x plus epsilon y divided by 2 plus. So here I'm writing 2 into 90 cosine 180 0. But 2 into 90 cos 180 it is minus 1. So we are getting minus epsilon x plus epsilon y divided by 2. Or you got my point? So epsilon x both are cancelled. We are getting here 2 epsilon y divided by 2 both are cancelled. We are getting the epsilon y. Or you got my point? So we are getting epsilon y. So this is the value of strain at which angle now? At which angle of the strain gauge? At 0 angle of the strain gauge. That is nothing but along x-axis. So what is the value? Epsilon x. I can find it by using the theta value. Now I'm going to find the what is the strain at an angle of 90 degrees. When you arrange the strain gauge at an angle of 90 degrees, what is the value of strain we can get it? That is epsilon y. I got it. So what is the strain along when theta is equal to 45 degrees? Now tell me here. So here we are writing here epsilon x plus epsilon y divided by 2 plus epsilon x minus epsilon y divided by 2 into cos into 2 into 45 cos 90. Cos 90 is nothing but 0, but sin 90 is 1. Then we are getting how much? Phi xy. So this is the value of strain at an angle of how much? 45 degrees. 45 degrees. Or you got my point? So here in any gate examination or any other competitive examination, they will give it to you strain along x-axis, strain along y-axis, and shear strain they will give it to you. Then substitute those values here. Then we are getting the strain along x, strain along y, and strain along an oblique plane. You will get it. After that, so it is also is equal to how much? Sigma 1. It is, sorry, epsilon 1. It is also epsilon 1. It is also is equal to epsilon 2. So here I am saying it is epsilon 1. It is epsilon 2. So after finding the epsilon 1 and epsilon 2, automatically, so we are going to substitute in the two formula. What are the formulas here? That is sigma 1 is equal to E into epsilon 1 plus Poisson ratio into epsilon 2 divided by 1 minus Poisson ratio whole square. And sigma 2 is equal to E into epsilon 2 plus Poisson ratio into epsilon 1 divided by 1 minus Poisson ratio. Are you got it? So if they will give it directly. So strain along x direction, that is strain along y direction, strain along z direction. They will give it to you. So otherwise we can follow like this. Okay, they will give directly. Otherwise they will give theta values. So substitute the theta values, then we can find this strain values epsilon 1 and epsilon 2. That is also is equal to epsilon x and epsilon y. Now substitute those epsilon 1 and epsilon 2 here. They will give the Young modulus and Poisson ratio. Then we can substitute here. Then we are going to get what are the principal stresses by using the principal strain by using which one? Gauges. The arrangement of, so in the same way, we are going to use the remaining two also, that is nothing but 60 degrees strain rosette and 120 degrees strain. I can arrange the strain gauges on a component in different angles so that I want to find the strains in along those angles. Then I can substitute those angles. Then we are getting the strain in that direction, strain in the second direction, strain along the diagonal wise. Then we are getting this here. So that is the oblique plane. Then we are taking the formulas of principal stresses. We are going to substitute those strain values in that equations. Then we are going to get stress values. Okay. So all of you clear this one? So only one or two questions are given. Just is directly question is given. That is epsilon x is given. So two questions are given in GATE examination on the principal strains. So I'll give it to you. So that is very simple question. Direct questions are given. So epsilon x is given, epsilon y is given. And find the maximum shear stress. Or you get my point or not? So here I am writing. So epsilon x is given. Epsilon y is given. These two values are given. I will give it to you. So what are the values of epsilon x and epsilon y also? But here listen carefully. So these two values are given, but he is asking what is phi maximum, that is shear strain maximum. But what is shear strain? Shear strain is always equal to gamma xy by 2. Is it right or not? That is also maximum is equal to, what is the formula? It is biaxial. So epsilon x is given, epsilon y is given. So it is biaxial. For in case of biaxial, we are always having epsilon x minus epsilon y divided by how much? 2. In case of stresses also, we are getting the same thing. Or you got my point or not? But here, this value and this value both are cancelled. Then substitute these two values, we are getting. I'll give you those values also. That is 1000 into 10 power of minus 6. So here 1000 into 10 power of minus 6. So strain does not have any units. And the next one is nothing but minus 600 into 10 power of minus 6. So it is a tensile, it is compressive. It is tensile, it is compressive. This question is given in GATE examination for 1 mark. So he is asking find the maximum shear strain. So maximum shear strain is nothing but general formula is gamma x, sigma x minus sigma y divided by 2. But those values are replaced by which one? Epsilon. But here phi is always gamma x y by 2 maximum is equal to like this. So 2 both are cancelled. Then we are getting here. So 1000 into 10 to the power of minus 6 minus into minus 6 into 10 to the power of minus 6. Then we are getting the required value. That is how much you get 1600. That is 1600 into 10 to the power of minus 6 is the value of phi maximum. That is shear strain maximum. Shear strain maximum. Now you got my point or not? So same. So any value we can find it. So they will give it to you directly. what is this value is nothing but epsilon y. So they will give it to you epsilon x and epsilon y, or in some cases they will give it to you phi xy also. This is biaxial. If phi xy is given, that is belongs to biaxial and shear. So in such cases, so we know that what are the formulas are required to calculate the maximum shear stress. Or got my point or not? For example, I'll give it to you. So for example, when epsilon x is given to you and epsilon y is given to you and phi xy is given to you. This is also is equal to gamma xy by 2. If these three values are given to you, so if they ask find the maximum shear stress, we can draw the Mohr circle diagram as same as principal stresses. As same as principal stresses, we can draw the Mohr circle diagram. So here, phi maximum. Regard, so phi maximum is equal to what is the formula here? Plus or minus square root of epsilon x minus epsilon y divided by 2 whole square plus gamma xy by 2 whole square. Actually, we can write phi xy whole square, but I have already told you gamma xy by 2 whole square. Then we can substitute all the values which are given in the problem. So then we will get the phi maximum value. It is also is equal to how much? Gamma xy by 2. Or you got it? So this is the way of calculation of principal strains. They will give you, so only two problems are given in the GATE examination on the principal strain. Maximum questions are given on principal stresses. Okay, right. So this is the way of calculation of. This is the way of calculation of. 1 minute, please. Wait. 1 minute. Wait. Okay, sorry for disturbance. So in this way, we are going to calculate principal strains also. So by finding the principal strains, automatically we can find the principal stresses by using the two relations. I have already told you what are the relations between the principal stress and principal strains. Then we can find those values also. Okay, right. So this is the analysis of our chapter number 2, that is principal stresses and the principal strains is over. So remember, so most of the cases are given on principal stresses and one or two problems are given on principal strains. So you have to be careful about the principal stresses according to Mohr circle diagram. So if the most of the questions are given on Mohr circle diagram, so I have already told you how to draw the Mohr circle and how to find the radius of the Mohr circle and how to find the coordinates of the Mohr circle. I have already told you. So now I'm going to explain the third chapter, that is chapter number 3. I want to give it to you. That is a very, very important but a very easiest chapter in our strength of material. That is nothing but shear force and bending moment diagrams. So here I'm writing shear force and bending moment diagrams. So first of all, before going to learn about shear force and bending moment, I want to give it to you. So before going to learn these two values, first of all, I'm going to give it to you. What is the definition of a beam how many types of beams we are having, how many types of supports of the beams we are having, and what are the loads which are acting on the beams. If you know those points, after that we are going to learn what is shear force, what is the sign convention of the shear force, and what is the bending moment, and what is the sign convention of the bending moment, and how to draw the shear force diagram and bending moment diagram. We are going to learn point by point. Now listen carefully. First of all, I am going to explain to you what is a beam here. What is a beam here? So beam is nothing but, so beam is a structural member which is subject to normal loads. Subjected to, it is subjected to normal loads. So beam is a structural member which is subject to normal loads. So that is named as a beam. So there are different types of beams are there. That is, I'm going to write it. So types of beams here. Types of beams here. So all of you know it. First one is nothing but cantilever beam. Cantilever beam. What is meaning of cantilever beam? So cantilever beam is nothing but one end is fixed, other end is free. So this is named as cantilever beam. You got my point? So and second one is nothing but so simply supported beam. Simply supported beam. That is nothing but the beam is simply supported on the support. So this is nothing but simply supported beam. You get my point? And third one is nothing but fixed beam. So both ends are fixed here. So this is the beam, both ends are fixed here. That is nothing but fixed beam. And the fourth one is nothing but so overhanging beam. Overhang beam. That means so this is the beam having a length more than between the two supports. What is the overhanging beam? So the length of the beam is always more than the distance between the two supports. Then the beam is always named as overhanging beam. This overhanging may be on one side or two sides. If you remove this one, this is the beam which is overhangs on one side. So if you put like this, then it is overhangings on two sides. So we can take any type of beam here. But here it is named as overhang beam, whether it is on one side or two sides, whatever it is. But it is having length more than the distance between the two supports. That is named as overhang. And fifth one is named as, that is I'm writing here. Fifth one is named as continuous beam. Continuous beam. What is meaning of continuous beam here? Continuous beam is nothing but it is the beam which is having more than two supports. So this is the beam I am taking here. This is one support and this is another support and this is the another support here. So the number of supports or goes on increases, that is more than two supports, and the beam is always named as continuous beam. And the sixth one is named as propped beam. So propped beam. What is the meaning of propped beam here? This is very important gate point of view. So take care about that thing. What is propped beam here? Propped beam is nothing but. So for example, if you take a cantilever beam, one end is fixed, other end is free. When the length of the beam is goes on increases, at a particular length, the beam automatically will bend like this. Automatically the beam bend like this. See this one. The beam will bend like this. Is it right or not? Is it right or not? Right. So here, when the length of the beam is goes on increase, due to its self weight, the beam undergoes bending. I want to reduce this bending. I want to restrict the bending. I want to restrict the bending so that I want to put the support here or here or here. So we can place it in one point. So I'm going to put one support here to reduce the bending here. I'm going to put one support here. That support always gives one reactive force. That reactive force is named as propped reaction. The support is named as propped support and the beam is named as propped beam. So these are the types of beams we are using in our shear force and bending moment diagrams. So in our practical case also, we are using different types of beams. One is named as cantilever beam. One end is fixed, other end is free. One is simply support beam. So this beam is simply placed over the supports. So fixed beam is nothing but both ends are fixed here. And next one is overhanging beam. That is the length of the beam is always more than the distance between the two support. Then this is named as always overhanging beam. And this one is continuous beam. This beam is always having the supports more than two. Then the beam is named as continuous beam. And the proper beam is nothing but when the length of the beam is goes on increases, in case of cantilever or that is beam undergoes some bending due to its self weight. So that I want to restrict the bending, so that I want to put some support at the bottom of the this beam to reduce the bending. That support is named as proper support, and this reaction is nothing but proper reaction, and this beam is named as proper beam. So these are the 6 types of beams we are going to use in our shear force and bending moment diagram. So now I'm going to explain to you. So first of all, what are the supports? So the beam always having support. Without support, there is no beam. So if it is a beam, there must be support. So without support, there is no beam. So that what are the supports of the beam now? Supports. What are the supports so we can use for the beams now? First one is nothing but fixed support. Fixed support. It is indicated by the symbol like this. See this one. This is a symbol for fixed support. So listen carefully. So what is fixed support here? So fixed support is always indicated like this. So if there is any fixed support is given, so if you want to draw the shear force and bending moment diagram, first of all, that fixed support is replaced by the reactive forces. So here, listen carefully. Beam is always subject to which forces? Normal force. That is always perpendicular to the x of the member. So here, so for example, this is a cantilever beam. So tell me how many reactions contained by the fixed support. If you apply the force here, if you apply the force, the supports must be give some reactive force in this direction. So there must be a horizontal reaction. So if you apply the force in this direction, the support must be applied some force in this direction. That is nothing but RV, vertical reactive force. And if you want to rotate this beam like this, so according to Newton's third law, every reaction there is equal and opposite reaction. If you want to rotate this one, this support does not allow the beam in this direction. Or you got my point or not? So there must be equal and opposite reactions maintained by the support. Otherwise, this component does not in equilibrium. So this component will goes to fail. When the component is said to be under equilibrium means horizontal forces, vertical forces, all the moments are under balance. Then the component is said to be under equilibrium. So the fixed support having 3 reactions. One is horizontal reaction, one is vertical reaction, one is moment reaction. So these are the supports, these are the reactions contained by the fixed support. And the second one I'm going to give it to you, that is nothing but roller support. Is roller support. So I'm going to indicate like this. So this is the roller support. So see this one. So what is the how many reactions contained by this roller? So this is, for example, if you see in this direction, it is applied as a roller. I can move this one in this direction, in this direction. There is any restriction of this motion. So this is x positive, this is x negative. So there is no any reactive force along x direction. So what is the horizontal reaction? Must be 0. Now at the same time, I can rotate like this. I can rotate like this. Is it right or not? I can rotate like this. So there is no any moment reaction. So moment reaction is 0. But I want to move this body in downward direction like this. Then what happen? this support will apply some force in which direction? Upward direction, according to our Newton's third law. Every reaction there is equal and opposite reaction. So it is having only vertical reaction, that is RV. So the roller support having only three reactions, that is one is said to be only one reaction, that is vertical. So horizontal and moment reaction both are become zero. And the third one is nothing but hinge support. Third one is nothing but hinge support. So I am going to indicate like this hinge support. Listen carefully. So this is the hinge here. So here, listen carefully. This is the hinge. I'm going to put this component like this. I'm going to hold this component like this. So it can easily rotate. It can easily rotate. It can easily rotate means there is any reaction in the rotational direction. There is no reaction. So it can easily rotate. Or you get my point, or we can hold like this at the center. So I can rotate easily like this. I can rotate easily like this. So there is no any moment reaction, that is M is zero. But if you apply the force in this direction, so I want to move this body in this direction. I want to move body in this direction or in this direction. Then this support will apply some reactive force. So if you apply the force here, this support will give a reactive force, that is horizontal reaction. At the same time, if you push this body in downward, not rotate, push this body in downward, then this will also apply some upward reaction, that is vertical. So in a hinge support, how many reactions we are having? Only two reactions. That is horizontal, and next one is vertical. And moment reaction becomes how much? Zero. Or you got my point or not? So these are the very, very important supports. There is another one is also there, knife edge support. So here fixed support having three reactions and this roller support having only one reaction, and hinge support is always having two reactions. So remember these supports. These are the most of the supports we are going to use here. Another one is also there, but that is not important. We know that that is nothing but knife edge support. So we can easily understand now. So these are the types of beams and types of supports of the beams. At the same time, what are the forces or what are the loads on the beams here? So I'm saying here loads on beams. So there are 6 types of beams are there, but on any beam you are going to apply the force. What are the types of forces we are going to apply here? But here those are also named as load. So we are going to apply point load. It is also named as concentrated load. It is always indicated by an arrow mark. It is acting at a single point, that is always named as concentrated load or point load. Point load means it is always acting at a point on the beam. So, and the second one is named as UDL, that is named as uniformly distributed load. That is, we are going to indicate like this. It can indicate like this, or we can indicate like this also. We can indicate like this also. This is the symbol for UDL, that is uniformly varying load, that is a uniform distributed load. So third one is uniformly varying load, that is UVL, uniformly varying load. This is indicated by like this. So this is varies from point to point. It is not constant. So it is varies from point to point like this. It is zero here. It is maximum here. So it is named as UVL. So these are the types of loads which are acting on the beams. So now here, all are clear. What is the definition of beam is over? What are the types of beams are over? And what are the supports of the beams is over? And what are the loads which are acting on the beams is also over. Now here, we are going to find first of all, what is the shear force and what is the bending moment. So how to define shear force and how to define bending moment. What is the sign convention of shear force? What is the sign convention of bending moment? I'm going to explain to you. After that, I will give it to you how to draw the shear force and bending moment diagram when the beam is subject to point load or UDL or UVL. So for different types of beams, I will give it to you one by one. So please listen carefully. That is very, very simple chapter. So we can easily learn. After that, I'm going to give it to you what is the relation between shear force and bending moment and load. So without load, there is no shear force, there is no bending moment. So by the application of the external force only, there must be a shear force, there must be a bending moment. If you neglect the self weight of the beam, if you neglect the self weight of the beam, or you got my point or not? Right. If you consider the self weight, due to the self weight, there must be a bending, there must be a shear also. But here we are always consider consider shear force and bending moment. But this beam we are not considering the self weight of the beam. Okay, right. Now listen carefully here. What I am saying, what is the definition of shear force and what is the definition of bending moment, and what is the sign convention when we are going to take it is positive, when we are going to take it is negative, in case of shear force, in case of bending moment. I'm going to explain to you. Okay, listen carefully. So for the explanation purpose, I'm going to take one beam here. First of all, I'm going to define shear force here. So shear force. What is the general meaning of shear force? It is the force which is parallel to surface. It is parallel to surface. It is parallel to surface. Then the force is always named as shear force. Or you got it? Now here I am give it to you. So for example, I am taking here one beam. So for explanation purpose, I am taking one beam here. That beam I am going to take it here, cantilever beam. So this is the cantilever beam. Or you got my point? This is the cantilever beam. Now this is the length of the beam. And if you see in this direction, we are having different types of cross section of the beam. If you see in this direction, it may be in the form of rectangle, in the form of triangle, in the form of square, in the form of circle, whatever it is. Okay, there are different types of cross sections we are using for the cantilever beams, I section, T section. We can use any type of section of the beam. So here, I want to apply some force here, that is nothing but point load, that is equal to how much? W. That is external, not internal force. That is external force W, which is acting on this beam. Okay, this is the length of the beam. So here, if you apply the external force, automatically, according to Newton's third law, every action there must be some reactive force. This is the active force which is acting on this beam, but reaction is given by which one? This support in this direction, in vertical direction. That is RV or part. It is also is equal to how much? W. So according to Newton's third law, every action there is equal and opposite reaction. If the beam is subject to this vertical load, the support will also give some reactive force having same magnitude is equal to applied load. Otherwise, the beam not in equilibrium, the beam undergoes fail, whether it is bending or breaking. Or got my point or not? Or got my point? If it is set to be under equilibrium condition means these two are balanced. That means what is the force we are applying? This force and this reactive force is given by the support, both are same. Otherwise, the component goes to fail. Or got my point or not? Right. So here I want to find the shear force. So for example, I want to find the shear force at any point along the length of the beam. I want to find it, not only at one point, at any point. At any point, I want to find the shear force value. So for example, I want to find the shear force at this point. At this point, I want to take this point is A. So this point A is at a distance of how much? X from the free end of the beam. Are you clear about this one? So if you want to find the shear force at any point on the beam, okay, now at that point, I'm going to cut the beam here into two parts. Listen carefully. What I'm saying? So where we are going to find the shear force at that point, I'm going to cut the beam into two parts. Now I'm going to draw the free body diagram of two portions or two parts. This is the right portion and this is the left portion. Now I'm going to take the right portion here. Right portion here. Now tell me, so how many forces are acting on the right portion? Only one force is acting on the right portion. Now, when it is said to be under shearing, That means if you apply this force at a point, if you apply the force at the free end of the beam, this portion goes to fail. That is, this portion is under shear. Shear means it is goes to break into two parts. When the part is shear from this part, that is this is the right part, this is the left part. When this part is shearing from this part, which is moving in downward direction due to this force. When this part is moving in downward direction, this part is always contact with this one. So this part applies some force on this part. At the same time, this part also applies some force on this part in which direction? According to Newton's third law, if the part applies some force on this part during the shear, that means when the part is moving in downward direction like this portion always applies some force in upward direction. Is it right or not? According to which one? Newton's third law. So this force is in upward direction. This force is given by which part? Not right part. This force is given by which part? Left part. This is the free body diagram of right portion. Now tell me, what is the free body diagram of the left portion here? So already here, left portion. So when this part is moving in downward, this part applies some force on this part. In which direction? Downward direction. This part applies some force on this part. In which direction? Upward direction. But both are having same magnitude, but direction is opposite. And what is this force here? This force must be again is equal to this force. These two are balanced and these two are balanced. Then only the component is said to be under equilibrium. Now I am going to define the shear force here. I am taking number of points here. Number of points here. So I am saying like this. If you take one point here, I want to find the shear force at any point along the length of the beam. What I am saying to you, if you want to find the shear force at any point, we are going to define like this. It is the algebraic sum of all the forces, whether it is moving in downward or upward direction, is named as shear force. For example, if you take this is the right portion, it is having only one force. For example, it is also having one upward force. This one is W1, this one is W2. I want to find the shear force here. So here I am going to indicate one force, that is W2, it is W1, but I want to find the shear force here. I want to find the shear force here, but I don't know the direction also, in which direction the total shear force will acting. But here, shear force is always equal to algebraic sum of upward forces plus sum of downward forces. Listen carefully. So what I am saying, listen carefully. So here I want to find the shear force at any point on the beam. So I am taking that point. I'm going to divide that beam into two parts. I'm going to divide that beam into how many parts? Two parts. Take either this one or this one, either left portion or right portion. Why? Because if you take right or left, this having same magnitude, but directions are opposite. We are getting the same value, but direction are. But for example, if you take a right portion, I want to find the shear force here. I want to find the shear force here. But what is the definition of shear force? I'm saying if you want to find the shear force at this section, that must be is equal to sum of upward forces and downward forces on this portion. Sum of upward forces and downward forces on this portion. Now, my doubt is, so when we are going to take upward is positive, when we are going to take its downward is negative. So, for example, if you take what I am saying here, if you take right part, if you take this one is the right part, downward is positive, that is a notation, you have to remember standard condition, and upward is negative. So if you take left part, downward is negative and upward is positive. But if you take these two conditions, but we get the same value at that point, but direction is opposite.
If you get the shear force at this point is plus value, there must be value of shear at that point is negative, but both are having same magnitudes. I'll prove it later now. Or you got my point? Now here, what is the shear force here? Shear force is nothing but so algebraic sum of all the forces at any point on a beam along its length. So that I'm going to give it to you how to find the shear force first of all. How to find shear force. So procedure to find shear force. Procedure to find shear force. Listen carefully. What is the procedure to find shear force? First of all, first point, divide the beam into two parts. Divide the beam into two parts where shear force will be found. Where shear force will be found. So, second one, indicate forces on each part. Indicate forces on each part. Remember these points. If you remember these points, we can solve any question, any type of beam, any type of load. We can calculate what is the value of shear force at any point. What I am saying, if you want to find the shear force at this point, first of all, divide that beam at that point into two parts. Then we can get right and left parts. And indicate the forces on each part. So I'm going to indicate the what are the forces which are acting on the right portion, what are the forces which are acting on the left portion. And the third one, I'm going to write, if you take a right portion, if you take a right portion, I'm writing downward is positive and upward is negative. In case of left part, so downward is negative, upward is positive. This is a standard notation of forces in case of shear force. Or you got my point? So if you choose the right portion, if the right portion having downward force, it is always take positive. And it is having upward force, we have to take always negative. If you choose left portion, if you choose right or left portion, we are getting the same value of shear force, but direction is different. We are getting same magnitude. So at last point, fourth one, after taking all the points, I want to find this shear force at that point. Shear force is equal to sum of upward forces plus downward forces. So this is the last point in the procedure of shear force. Or you got my point? Right. Listen carefully here. Listen carefully. So what I am saying here, shear force is nothing but algebraic sum of upward and downward forces at any point along the length of the beam. That is the definition of shear force. Now here, if you want to find the shear force at any point, so for any type of beam, for any type of loading, we have to follow some procedure, but only you have to follow 3 points only. Have you got it? What are the points here? If you want to find the shear force at any point, at that point, divide the beam into how many parts? 2 parts. And the second one, indicate forces on each part. Indicate the forces on each part. And third one, take any one of the part, either left part or right part. Then we are going to take a right part, then downward is positive, upward is negative. And the left part, downward is negative, upward is positive. So this is the value of shear force. This is nothing but sign convention of shear force. Remember one thing. Or you got my point or not? Or you got it? So for example, if this value, the shear force is having two values, W1 and W2, this is positive. Listen carefully. This is positive, this is negative. For example, it is 50 newtons, it is 60 newtons. If you add these two, we are getting minus 10 newtons. Why? Because this is positive, this is negative. Then if you sum up these two, then we can get minus 10 newtons. That is shear is negative. Negative means it is moving in downward or upward. Negative means it is moving in upward. So we have to indicate the diagram in upward direction. So I'm going to indicate this is the shear force direction. If we get positive, the shear is moving in downward direction. This is plus 10, this is minus 10. Listen carefully. Okay. All right. So this is the procedure for shear force and the definition of shear force. This is a simple example to easily understand the shear force definition now. Right. Now I'm going to explain about the bending moment here. Now listen carefully here. So what is bending moment here now? So for example, I'm taking here the same beam here, that is cantilever beam, which is subject to a point load here, that is equal to W. We know that moment is nothing but, so moment is always nothing but, so moment can be calculated by using one reference point. Without reference point, we can't calculate the moment of the force. For example, if you draw one line here, so the line does not have any arrow mark. So I'm going to take one point here. So if I indicate like this, that arrow always moving in this direction, but with respect to this point, it is rotating either clockwise or anti-clockwise direction. Clockwise direction. If you indicate like this, then with respect to this point, this force is moving in anti-clockwise. This force is moving in clockwise direction. So if you want to define the moment, one reference point is required. So that, so moment is nothing but force into perpendicular distance between the force and the reference point. This is the reference point, the perpendicular distance between the force and the reference point, that is F into D. So I'm writing here, movement is nothing but force into distance, that is the perpendicular distance. Or you got the point or not? So without a reference point, we can't say the moment of the force now. Or you got the point or not? So with the indication of the direction with respect to that point, so we can define what is the sign convention of this moment. So moment is nothing but either positive or negative. I will give it to you later. Now listen carefully here. This is the formula of moment. But here I am going to take bending moment. Why? Because by the application of this one, it undergoes some bending. So it is not a bending moment. So I am taking one point here, that is A. So this point is a distance of how much? X here. Now what is the bending moment? What is the bending moment? So at point A, I am taking bending moment at point A is equal to force is how much here? This is the force here, that is W into how much? X. W into how much? X. So when this force is acting in downward or upward? Downward. So the beam can easily bend like this. Or got my point or not? So when the beam is bent like this, we can take negative. When the beam is bent like this, we can take positive. Or you got my point or not? So that is directly I'm saying. So I'm not saying about the hogging and sagging moments. We can remember like this. So when the load is moving in downward direction is always negative. When the load is moving in upward direction is always positive. So I can take this moment is here negative. Got my point or not? So here, this is the sign convention of bending moment, and this is nothing but bending moment formula. So for example, if you apply the force here, the beam will bend like this. So this support will also give some reactive force in this direction. This force gives some movement in this direction. Both are having same magnitude, but directions are opposite, so that the beam will bend like this. The beam will bend like this. Or you got my point or not? Or you got my point? And again, if this force is moving in upward direction, this beam is bending in this direction. Or you got my point? So this one is negative and this one is positive. Or you got my point or not? Right? So this one is nothing but hogging, this one is nothing but sagging. So these are the two values. These are the sign convention of bending moment. This is sign convention of bending moment depending on the direction of force. Now here, so same definition we can use for bending moment also. What is bending moment here? So bending moment is nothing but, I'm writing the definition here. I'm going to define So sum of moments of upward and downward forces at any point on the beam. What I am saying here, sum of moments of upward forces and downward forces at any point on the beam. As same as, listen carefully, as same as in the previous case, what I told you here, if you take any beam here, so if you take at any point on the beam, for example, this is a point load. If you take any point on, so divide the beam into two equal parts here. Same in the case of shear force and in the case of bending moment. But here, how to calculate bending moment here? If you want to calculate bending moment here, we're going to write this one. Sum of moments of upward forces and downward forces. But here, if you take this right part, this left part, we can take any part. As in the previous case, that is shear force. Or you got the point? Listen carefully. In case of shear force and bending moment, procedure is same, but only difference in the last point. Listen carefully. What is the last point? What is the first point in shear force? So divide the beam at any point where we are going to calculate shear, as same as where we are going to calculate bending moment. That is one first point. And the second point, so indicate the forces on each part. Indicate the force on each part. That is the second point. And the third one is nothing but the shear bending moment at that point is equal to sum of the upward forces and sum of the downward. That is moments of upward forces and some downward forces. That is nothing but bending moment procedure. Have you got my point? So here I'm going to here this is the definition of moment. That is also bending moment. This is a sign convention of bending moment. When we are going to take the moment is positive, when we are going to take the moment is negative. So procedure is same between the shear force and bending moment here. So in case of shear force here, in case of shear force definition, only we are writing sum of upward forces and sum of downward forces. But in case of bending moment, we are writing always sum of moments of upward forces and downward forces. Sum of upward forces and downward forces. So this is the definition of shear force and bending moment. And we know that what is the sign convention when we are taking the positive, when we are going to take in the negative. I have already told you. But on what is the procedure to find the shear force? Already I have given 3 points in shear force. We can follow the for bending moment also. Same procedure we can follow for bending moment also. Then we can find the bending moment at any point on the beam. So first of all, we have to do one thing. So if any beam is given, that beam is subject to different types of loads. So take any point on the beam where we are going to find the shear and bending moment. At that point, divide the beam into two parts. Take either left part or right part, indicate the forces on each part. That is the second point. After that, indicate the sign convention. Indicate the sign convention means which force is positive, which force is negative. I have already told you. Which moment is negative, which moment is positive in case of bending moment. I have already given to you. So that at the end, shear force is equal to sum of upward forces and downward only forces. But here sum of moments of upward forces and downward forces. So that is named as bending moment at any point on the beam, shear force at any point on the beam. Now, all points are clear here. One is definition is over, and second one is nothing but types of beams is over, types of supports is over, types of loads is over, and what is the definition of shear force is over, what is the sign convention of shear force is over, and another one is what is the procedure to find the shear force is over, and what is bending moment, what is sign convention of bending moment, what is the procedure to find the bending moment is over. So by using this procedure for shear force and bending moment, we are going to draw the shear force and bending moment diagrams. Now, my question is, what is the use of these diagrams? Why we are going to draw these diagrams, shear force and bending moment diagram? So if you draw the shear force and bending moment diagram, by seeing the diagram, we can easily identify where the shear is maximum and where the shear is minimum, and where the bending is maximum and where the bending is minimum. So if you know the shear is maximum, at that point the component goes to fail. That means when the shear is maximum is at that point, what is the bending moment value? We can check it. So when the bending moment is maximum, what is the value of shear force value? Both are maximum or only one is maximum? Both are minimum or maximum? We can check it very easily by identify the diagram where the shear is maximum, where the bending is maximum. We can easily identify so that where the bending and shear is maximum, at that point the component goes to fail. So that I want to design the component at that point without any failure. How to design it? By providing more material, then we can increase the strength of that point. Then automatically the component never goes to fail. I will give the explanation in bending stresses and shear stresses, how to increase the strength of the material. Or you got my point or not? So, what is the use of these diagrams? By using these diagrams, we are going to easily identify where the shear force and where the bending moment is maximum. Why? Because at that point, the components are goes to fail. We are going to find the failure point. I have already told you, in case of ductile, in case of brittle material, we have one term that is nothing but factor of safety, that is always equal to maximum stress by minimum, that is a safe stress, or maximum force by safe force. If you know the maximum force, automatically we can find the safe force, that is always less than the maximum force. Then divide those two, then we are getting the factor of safety. Then we can design the component. Okay, all right. So here, now I'm going to explain how to draw the shear force and bending moment diagram for different beams which are subjected to different types of loads here. First of all, I'm going to explain for cantilever beams. When the cantilever beam is subject to point load, cantilever beam is subject to uniform distributed load, cantilever beam is subject to uniform varying load. How to calculate, how to draw the shear force diagram, and how to draw the bending moment diagram. Okay, so listen carefully. So here I'm putting the head, case one, cantilever beam. So in case of cantilever beams, first of all, I'm going to take case one. So this is the beam which is subject to a point load at its free end, that is W. W. So I want to draw the shear force and bending moment diagram for this case. So listen carefully, right? So what is the procedure to find the shear force and bending moment? So first of all, I'm going to indicate one point here. That is nothing but a point here. This point is a distance of how much? X from the free end. And this is the total length of the beam. Or you get my point or not? That is total length of the beam. Now here, what I am saying here, what is the value of shear force at this point? What is the bending moment at this point? At the same time, where we get the maximum shear force, where we get the maximum bending moment value. I want to find those things. So listen carefully. What is the procedure here? Divide this beam at this point into two equal parts. So not two parts, not equal but two parts. I'm going to take the right part here. This is the right part, so which is having a length of how much? X, and it is subject to one load that is equal to W. I want to find the shear force and bending moment at this point. Listen carefully. I want to find the shear force and bending moment at this point. Now, what is the formula for shear force here? So shear force is equal to sum of upward forces and downward forces. Is it right or not? Shear force is equal to sum of upward forces and downward forces. So how many upward forces here? 0. How many downward forces? 1. So this is the right portion. Is it right or not? I have already told you what is the sign convention of this force. This force is positive or negative? This force is always positive. It is moving in downward direction. In case of shear, I have already given to you. So here, so upward is 0 and downward is plus W. So shear force at a point A must be is equal to how much? 0. That is W here. W here. I'm writing here W, that is positive. So here I want to find the bending moment here. Bending moment here. So bending moment at a point A is equal to that force into perpendicular distance. This force into this perpendicular distance, that is W into how much? X. But this force is moving in downward, bending is negative. I have already told you. That is the sign convention. So this value is negative. So this is the value of bending moment at this point. So here, this length I am taking from this point to this point. So here I am taking the limits x equal to 0. Here I am taking x equal to L. So I am come from right to left. You can take left to right also. So here we can take x equal to 0, or we can take x equal to L, or we can take x equal to 0, x equal to L. I am coming from in this direction, left to right. We can take right, left. I am coming from right to left. We can take left to right also, as you wish. Now here, the shear force, if you take shear force at this point, we can get same value, W. If you take at this point, W. But if you take at this point, this force is acting downward. This is the active force. This support will give some reactive force, that is W. But this is negative, this is positive. If we come to this point, both are cancelled to each other, then the shear force at this point is 0 without taking off reaction. I will give it to you, listen carefully. So now tell me, so shear force at this point is W, 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 W. Why? Because between there is no any other force. If there is any other force, I will give it to you how to add all the forces. Add all the forces. Why? Because what is the definition of shear force? Sum of all the forces, whether they're moving in upward direction or downward direction. Or you get my point or not? Right. So here, where this bending moment is maximum, when x equal to 0, bending moment is also 0. When x equal to L, bending moment is equal to minus WL. When x equal to L by 2, bending moment is also is equal to minus WL by 2. By seeing the three values, so where we get the maximum bending moment, forget about the sign convention, whether it is positive or negative. Tell me about the magnitude. Which value is maximum? So this value is maximum. Or you got my point or not? So if you take in case of shear force, at this point is W, 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 W. Any point shear force is W. If you come to this one, shear force is also W. But if you consider this reactive force, both are cancelled to each other. Without considering this reactive force, the shear force at this point is W. All got my point? So I want to write the shear force and bending moment diagram for this case. Listen carefully. So what is the equation we are having here? W. W means it is constant. But here x power 1. X power 1 means, so x is varies linearly. So bending moment is varies linearly, but shear force is constant at every point. Constant means, so listen carefully. Okay. So here I'm going to draw the shear force diagram. Shear force diagram. So here I'm going to take, this is the beam. Here is x equal to 0 and here is x equal to L. Now tell me here at x equal to 0, what is the shear force W? It is positive. Why? Because it is moving in downward. I'm coming from right to left. So it is positive. Positive means I'm going to indicate in upward direction up to this one. This is plus W. But here, this value is constant. So I'm going to draw one line horizontally up to this one. Up to this one is W. But if you consider this reaction, plus W minus W becomes how much? 0. Or you got my point? Without consideration of this reaction, up to this one is shear force is constant. Or got my point? What is that value? Plus W. If you consider the reactive shear force, then this value comes to 0. So this is the shear force diagram for a cantilever beam which is subjected to a point load at its free end. We can apply it at this point also, at this point also. But what is the shape we get it now here? It is in the form of rectangular shape. So what I am saying here, if any cantilever beam or simply supported beam, overhanging beam, continuous beam, if you take any beam, if the beam is subject to point load, that beam having shear force diagram is rectangle. What I am saying? What I am saying here, listen carefully. If you take any beam, that is cantilever or simply supported or hanging, whatever the beam it is, if the beam is subjected to point load, what is the shape of the shear force diagram? Rectangle. Now, I'm going to draw here bending moment diagram. So here I'm going to take it. This is the bending moment diagram. So here x equal to 0. What is x equal to 0? I have already told you. If suppose x equal to 0, so bending moment is also 0. It is 0. But at x equal to L, so bending moment is equal to minus WL. So here it is positive or negative? Negative. So this is downward. Negative means downward. This is minus WL. If it is positive, we can indicate upward. Now I want to join these 2 points. How to join these 2 points? A straight line or parabola or any curve. So how to join these 2 points? So which equation we are getting here? X power 1. That is linear equation we are getting. So I'm going to join these 2 points by a line here. That is a straight line. It is a linear. So bending moment diagram is in the form of triangle. So this is negative. It is in the form of triangle. Or you got my point? So listen carefully. If you take any beam, when the beam is subject to either beam is subject to a point load, that beam may be cantilever or overhanging, simply supported, propped beam, whatever it is, the shear force diagram is rectangle and bending moment diagram is triangle for point load only. For point load only. Or you got my point or not? So this is the way of calculation of shear force and bending moment on a cantilever beam which is subject to point load, and how to draw the shear force and bending moment diagram. By seeing this diagram, what is the maximum shear force value plus W, or we can say simply W, it may be positive or negative. And what is the bending moment value? WL, that may be negative here, whether it is positive or negative, what it is, magnitude is important here. That is how much? WL. Or you got my point or not? Or you got it? Right. So this is the way of calculation of shear force and bending moment for cantilever beam. Or you got it? Right. So now I'm going to give it to you for when the cantilever beam is subject to UDL. So how to calculate that value? Okay, listen carefully here. After that, I will give you. So I will take the in the next class also. After that, I'll give some problems on different types of problems on cantilever beam, which is subject to point load and UDL and UVL. How to solve it, which are given in GATE examination also here. So this is the example, that is a cantilever beam which is subjected to a uniformly distributed load like this. This load is nothing but W per meter, and this one is nothing but L, length of the beam. Yeah. Now procedure is simple now. Listen carefully. Procedure is simple. So here, so take one point here, divide the beam into 2 parts. Listen carefully. Let's take this part now. And this one is the right portion I am taking. This length is I am going to taking as X value. And what is this weight here? This is the weight per meter, but this is nothing but weight per length of X here. Now tell me, what is the total load on this beam? The total load on this beam is nothing but W into X. That is exactly acting at the center. So I'm indicating here W into X, that is the total load. That means I'm going to convert this UDL into point load. This is a distance of X by 2. This is a distance of X by 2. Or you got my point? Here I'm going to find what is shear force, what is the bending moment. Here I'm going to find shear force and bending moment value. Now tell me what is the value of shear force here? Shear force here. Shear force is equal to same formula. Upward forces plus downward forces. So how many forces on this portion now? Only one force, which is moving in downward. So the upward force are 0, 0 plus W into X. So shear force is equal to W into X, which is positive. Why? Because it is moving in downward. So shear force is a linear function. That is X power 1 we are getting. When X equal to 0, shear force also 0. When X equal to L, shear force is equal to W into L. So when X equal to L by 2, so shear force is equal to WL by 2. Or you got my point? So these are the values of shear force at X equal to 0, X equal to L, and X equal to L by 2. As same as I want to find the shear force at this point, bending moment at this point. So what is the bending moment here? So bending moment at point A here. This is also A. This is also A. So I'm writing bending moment at A is equal to this force into this distance, that is W into X into X by 2, but it is moving in downward, it is negative. Then we're getting minus W X square by 2. So this is X power 2. So it is follows parabolic form. The bending moment diagram is a parabolic form. So this is the bending equation formula for uniform distributed force at any point on the beam. When X equal to 0, so bending moment is also 0. When X equal to L, so bending moment is equal to minus WL square by 2. When X equal to L by 2, bending moment is equal to minus WL square by 8. So which one is maximum here? This one is maximum. So for a cantilever beam, shear force and bending moment both are maximum at this support. So I'll take care about that thing now. So shear force is follows linear function and bending moment follows parabolic function. So by using these two, I want to draw the shear force and bending moment diagram. So listen carefully here. I want to draw the shear force and bending moment diagram. So here I'm going to draw it. So this is the shear force. At this point, shear force is 0. At this point, shear force is that is WL. Here is 0. Here is positive value. Positive value means we are getting up to this one, that is WL. And I'm going to join these 2 points by linear. Why? Because X power 1. So I'm going to join like joins. Right. Listen carefully. When the beam is subject to uniformly distributed load, the shear force diagram is always triangle. For point load, rectangle. For UDL, triangle. But in bending moment for point load is triangle and uniform distributed load is parabola. I will give the table also in the next class. So in this case, what is the bending moment here? 0. And what is the bending moment here? Minus W L square by 2. That is the maximum. I want to join these two by which one? Parabolic. So this is the diagram of bending moment. So this is a triangle and this is the parabola. Okay. So this is the way of calculation of shear force and bending moment at any point by using the procedure. And this is the way of drawing the shear force and bending moment diagram. Or you got it? So I hope you got it. In the next class, I will explain you each and everything. I will give you more number of problems which are given in GATE examination and ES examination. How to draw the shear force and bending moment diagram in different cases. I will give to you more number of problems. Okay. Okay. Thank you to all of you. Thank you very much. So I will continue in the next class. Okay. Thank you very much to support me. Okay. Thank you. Now I'm going to close the class. Next week, I will take the continuous class. Thank you very much.